Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. We're taking advantage of some beautiful weather we have today down in southern Ohio. I'm going to be getting back to work establishing one of the food plots on my new property here. You'll see with this brush pile behind me, I already started clearing out some of the debris in the area that I'm going to be establishing this plot. So if you have a whitetail property in hill country and you're looking to implement a food plot like this into your strategy, this video is going to be great for you. I'm going to be breaking down exactly why I chose this location for a food plot and hopefully offering some tips and advice for you if you want to establish a food plot of your own on your whitetail property in hill country. So with that, let's go ahead and let's get to work. As I pull out the drone here and put up a map of the area that I'm going to be establishing this food plot on my property, one of the most important things to keep in mind is that we're only blessed to have so much flat land in hill country. With that, there's only so many flat areas that you're actually able to establish a food plot. I was lucky enough to have this bench in the lower section of my property to get almost a half an acre of food plot area that I'm actually going to be able to come in here and plant. Now, the other thing that's really nice about the location of this food plot is that it aligns with the natural flow of deer movement on my property. So up on the top of the hill, we already have a lot of really good deer bedding up there. Bedding that I'm going to continuously improve throughout the winter and the spring. And then in between that bedding and where I'm going to be putting this food plot, there's a ton of oak trees. We have a lot of whites, reds, and chestnuts in there that all produce acorns, that all provide the deer with an additional food source on their way down to this staging area food plot. Now, once you get beyond my property towards the bottom of the hill system, there's a lot of open fields that are filled with some crops, some grasses, that act as a destination food source for these deer in the evening. So what my food plot is going to do, it's going to act as that staging area between the bedding, between the natural food source for the deer on the property, and then that destination food source down on the bottom of the hill. Now, the last thing that I want to point out about the natural flow of deer movement in this particular food plot location on my property is the previous owner had horses, and they have a horse fence up along the edge of where the main entrance is going to be into this food plot. So that horse fence, which is roughly about 5 foot tall, isn't necessarily a barrier that the deer can't cross over if they would like to, but it's not something in a low pressure environment leading them directly to the food that they're going to want to cross over frequently, especially because on the other side of the horse fence is essentially the backyard for my house. So that corner of the horse fence is going to create a really nice edge, a really nice pinch point that I'm going to get into a stand location later in this video that should be a pretty good spot for me to hunt in the future. Now, before I pull the drone back out and get into the individual stand locations I'm going to be hunting in this food plot, I want to talk about access, because access is always a very important thing for me, no matter if I'm hunting food like this or if I'm hunting travel in between bedding and food, or I'm hunting in rut funnels in the middle of November. Access is always a really big thing for me. So the thing that's really nice about my access in and out of this food plot is that it's very low impact and it's away from the core area that the deer are spending a lot of the time on my property. My access is going to come up directly from the edge of that horse fence below the hillside where the terrain is going to completely block my view. So I'm going to be very secure on my way in and out of this food plot location. Now, the other thing that I want to keep in mind is that great setups take time. I've heard this from a lot of guys that I really respect in the whitetail world, is that when you initially make these habitat improvements in a location like this, where I'm improving the bedding, I have this transition zone leading into this brand new food source, that's a big, massive change on your property and how the deer are going to exactly react. Although you can set these habitat improvements up to try to make it happen a certain way, it does not always work like that. So I'm going to have multiple stand locations, which you're going to see here in just a minute, that I'm going to eventually probably narrow down to one, maybe two. But at the beginning, I really like to have a lot of options because it allows me to develop this location over the next couple of years and find out exactly what is my best stand location within this food plot area. So the first stand location that I'm going to have in this area is actually going to be right on that fence line. I'm going to access directly up that fence, and then right where that fence comes to a corner, this bench where I'm going to be implementing this food plot actually continues to extend up into the timber, and I think that's going to end up being one of the main entry exit routes for these deer into this food plot area. So I'm going to be able to securely come up right up that fence line, set up in my saddle in one of these smaller trees, leave a lot of that brushy cover around me, so that way I'm not exactly hunting the food plot itself, but I'm hunting over one of the main travel corridors that's leading in and out of the food plot. The second stand location that I have is going to be in the center portion of the food plot. Now I'm going to be able to use the terrain for my advantage on an access route with this as well. The drop off beyond that bench is steep enough that I can actually walk my way up right in the center portion of this food plot and climb up one of the bigger trees in this center section and hunt the actual food plot itself. And with this plot running to the north and the south, I should get a lot of the deer movement heading in that particular direction, keeping them away from walking directly at my tree and keeping them right in that sweet spot bow range away from this stand location to present an actual opportunity to hunt over this food plot. Now the last stand location that I have planned out for this food plot right now is going to be on the complete opposite side, and it's going to be on the continuation of the bench, similar to what I was saying in stand 1 where I'm going to be trying to catch them as they're coming on that fence edge. This bench is going to continue on past where I'm going to be planting the food plot, and it'll allow the deer to either come in from the top or come in from the bottom, whatever one it may be. I just know that this is going to be another main entry exit route. I don't know exactly how the deer movement's going to shape out over here, but nonetheless, I want to make sure I have a tree prepped in this zone so that way I'm ready to hunt. So that way if the wind is a little bit different, or if this is an area maybe like the bucks like to access the food plot, I'm at least prepared and I'm ready to get my mobile set in there and have a really good hunt. Now there's a couple more things that I want to touch on before wrapping this video up. The first one of those being is that this plot is going to be planted in a north to south direction. The reason that I really like to do that in these more narrow plots is because it gets a lot more sun exposure. So I'm looking off to the south right now. When that sun comes up over the edge of the hill on my property, it's going to get sun almost the entire day until that sunset, which is going to really help with the growth of this plot. So first tip, go ahead and, if possible, plant these food plots in that north-south direction to get the most sunlight possible. Now, one more thing about this food plot, I think it's important that I understand that this plot is going to be nothing more than a staging area plot. So although it is right around a ½ acre in size, there's much better food down at the bottom of the hill here, which is okay with me because I don't necessarily love to hunt destination food plots. I don't think those are the places where I'm going to have an opportunity at the bigger and better bucks on my property. And I think staging area food plots like this is where that magic is really going to happen. So when I have these deer coming off the top of my hill, hitting this as that staging area before they enter that destination food in the evening, that's going to allow me to slip right out my low impact access away from where the deer are headed in the evening, or in the rare event that I hunt this food plot in the morning, it's going to allow me to slip out the bottom when those deer are passing their way through and going back up to the top of the hill. So a quick recap of what we covered here today. The first thing being terrain. We have to take advantage of the flat areas that are given to us on hill country when they align with our long-term vision for the property. We have to have secure access in and out of these plots. One of the nice things about food plots in hill country is that you are able to use the terrain to your advantage to get in and out of these food plot locations. And the last thing being just some general tips on understanding what the purpose of your food plot is. I know that this is nothing more than a staging plot, so there's no reason for me to hunt it any other way. That's going to wrap up today's video. If you guys have any questions on hill country food plots, drop them down in the comments below. I'll continue to keep you updated throughout the year on how this plot is going, so make sure you subscribe to the channel. We'll see you guys in the next one.